Okay, hopefully this is all working, and I'm glad to see you guys here. Thank you for joining me once again. This is Colin Sleuth, and my show is called Funk the State. And I was just playing with some of the functions on Google Plus Hangouts here. They've done some new stuff. You guys should all check it out. It's been a little while since I did a show. I missed a show last week. If you guys, hopefully you guys noticed, and were, terribly sad to miss an episode of Colin Sleuth, Funk the State. Things came up, and I wasn't able to spend the time doing it. So I apologize for that. I hope it hasn't been too much of a disturbance, and I hope you guys are hanging in there with me. So, I'm going to just fly by the seat of my pants here on this show and try and cover some stories that I thought were interesting that have come up, as usual, and talk about a subject that I've been thinking a lot about the last 2 weeks, since the last time I talked to you guys. I'm here. I've been working a lot in the summer. It seems to have a lot of work coming up, so I've been doing that. I just got off work now. I'm going to start work again at 6 in the morning. So maybe this show isn't going to exactly be half an hour. If I run out of time the flow and the subject matter, I'm going to just switch it off and let it be at that rate. I'm just going to show you the beer I got today. I got this great beer, Paddy Whack Double IPA, and if you look closely, that's a 9%. So, you might be wondering, are all beers, is all Canadian beer 9%? And of course, no, that's silly. Only the light beer in Canada is 9%. That's why I'm drinking this. So, I have a sip of that and refresh myself. And hope you guys are strapped in for the ride here. Today, I'm going to see if I can make all this stuff work today. A couple stories, interesting stories. They start off, just all over the place here, but there's been a new development in Bitcoin. CryptoRadio. People should go check it out. Maybe they'll understand it better than I do, but essentially I want to bring you the news. A company out of Finland has created a way for people to connect to the Bitcoin network without the internet. According to the website, CryptoRadio is a Bitcoin data transmission system that transmits Bitcoin transactions, blocks, and currency exchange data in real time. Uses terrestrial television transmitters around the world. So, they're trying to develop it in Finland because they're trying to actually come up with altcoins in Finland that would even be a government currency. They talk about it on this article. You guys should go check it out and find out. Bitcoin people, figure this out. Is it really true that they're developing a technology that will allow you to trade Bitcoin without needing the internet? This would be a pretty spectacular advancement. So I don't know much about it. I just wanted to bring you guys that important news. A lot of Bitcoin people out there, and maybe there'll be a lot more if it doesn't rely on the internet. A lot of people, when I try and talk about Bitcoin with them, will mention that they don't trust the internet's going to be there forever and stuff like that. It's not really my concern, but I've noticed a lot of people do have that concern. And so this might be a new way to popularize Bitcoin if this technology really does come online. You guys maybe can learn more about it if you understand Bitcoin better than I do, and then hopefully come back and explain it to me. Some other interesting things. I just have some interesting things to check out. Well, here's another story. Solar-powered 3D printer turns desert sand into glass. And the way I frame this is I point out that recycling glass is bad for the environment. It's a waste of resources. That sounds shocking and everything, and it's especially true now that we have these technologies where we're going to be able to 3D print objects, durable objects of all types, molded into anything, and glass can be molded into, made literally out of sand. Deserts could be the new production range area, and what this is going to mean for technology and accessibility, this is a big deal. So, go look up this headline or go to my Facebook page or any of my pages, Twitter or especially Twitter, I guess, and Facebook. You could check out this article, or just look up solar-powered 3D printer turns desert sand into glass. It's got a picture of a guy playing with his little 3D printer studio in the desert. Okay, there's going to be no shortage of materials. There's going to be a desert isn't going to be a big waste of land, which it has been so far. It's going to be an important, productive resource. And there's a really great video I saw called Rethinking Civilization. It's a crash course, world history, number 201. Everybody go check it out. The whole show is about Zomia. You may have heard of Zomia, sort of a uncountry or something like this. It's an unnation. Zomia is talked about in The Art of Not Being Governed, which is an anarchist history of an ungoverned country called Zomia. So check out the book, The Art of Not Being Governed. Look it up on Google and on Wikipedia and stuff like that. Then go check out this video, Rethinking Civilization. A great video, a great one to play for kids, or for, it's not so basic that it would be good for really young kids, but more advanced young people, and just a lot of regular adults. This video talks and addresses this idea, all the points made in the book, The Art of Not Being Governed, which is a really great book I have read, and he points out in the book some interesting anarchist points about history and about society, and about people fleeing to the hills because it makes it hard for the state to conquer them, and explaining the history of human movement on land, colonization of land, with this principle in mind. Not just the colonizing principle, but the actually escaping from the state is a central point on why people push out into new and untouched territories. Ever since I read this book, I thought this would be a great historical point to make about why people came and arrived in the New World in the first place, looking for opportunity and trying to escape from authoritarian violence, essentially. And I'm not just talking about Christopher Columbus or any people like that, or the voyageurs in Canada, or the other people who escaped Europe, who escaped the authoritarian regime of the Middle Ages. They did so for the same reason people moved to Zomia. So this is an important principle that can explain a lot of the history of the world. I even think that we could make this argument about natives, and it may not just be that the original natives were escaping the state because it was so long ago, but they certainly were escaping difficult economic circumstances. So they were most likely not staying in the old land, specifically because there was a shortage of resources available, or development or wealth available to them, so they're pushed onward into places where they thought they could have a better future. This explains a lot about why people have colonized the whole planet, and could be a useful point. So this video is a really great video for everybody to check out. So go check it out, Rethinking Civilization, Crash Course in World History 201, all about Zomia, a country you've never heard of. It's an unnation. I'm making up that term right now. Maybe I didn't make it up, but I have a great quote from one of my favorite philosophers, and it ties in with what I was talking about on other shows, specifically about cheese, but it really ties in with the whole point that I'm trying to get to here with the name of the show and the point behind the show, Funk the State, what funk the state means. I talk about these subjects like fine cheese and wine and great beer and other things like final goods, I call them, things that you when you think about why you're going to work, you come home at the end of the day to have these great ecstatic moments of satisfaction, and that is the funk. And if we focus on these things, and by letting 1,000 of these small unique situations bloom, we will create a new path forward without the state. The state also exists to destroy these things, and it destroys these things to extend its power. And why does it do that? It's because the people who want to use the state like extending power. So what does funk the state mean? That's my explanation. Hopefully I can get into it. Maybe I'll put it in better terms at another point, or if you want to ask me about it, please contact me through Facebook or through Twitter, and we could talk about it more. But I have this great quote which sums up kind of what I'm getting at and how important it is. It's not just kind of silly and funny the way I kind of spin it. It's the great breakthroughs, what I call civilization, for humanity, are not necessarily due to altruistic purposes. They aren't necessarily due to great, people trying to help their neighbor and all these things. We don't have to rely on that, because and even some of the great breakthroughs in history of human civilization weren't a direct result of this attempt to help people even, or benefit, the greater mankind. Sometimes they were pursuing mundane pleasures, what would seem like mundane pleasures, but I call ultimate goods or final goods. And in the pursuit of these profitable endeavors that seem, not important, we develop technologies, we develop knowledge that is used in other applications. So here we have a quote from Ludwig von Mises, and you should all know who he is, but you should definitely go read his books, and definitely go read the first 100 pages of Human Action. Please go do that, and you're going to have to read it a few times because it's difficult. So here's the quote from Ludwig von Mises. There is no doubt that bacteriological research was instigated not only by the desire to fight contagious diseases, but also by the desire of the producers of wine and cheese to improve their methods of production. And I think that's a great quote. I want you to go look this quote up, or just rewind it back and listen to what I just said. It's a very important point that he's making. You might miss it. Think deeply on what he's saying there. It's very important. I've talked about, now it turns out you'll never guess what the top political label in America is. And we could say that, America at least is one of the cultures that sets the tone over the last 50 or 100 years, culturally and politically. So this is a big deal. Like the top political label in America right now that people are self-identifying with is Libertarian. So, and it's leaning more and more towards that. And Libertarian is a broad term, and some people aren't satisfied with that term. And I might not go into this too deep here, but I believe in hyphenating our terminology so that we can add elements to it and not try and narrow it down to one term. It's a semantic point. I think it's an important one. I'm going to go into it on a different show because it's going to be a tricky thing to talk about. Basically, we're winning. It's happening. And Ron Paul was right. And, other people greater than Ron Paul, if there is people, they were right too. And so keep doing what we're doing. Let's not push people away from this movement. Let's bring them in, find a way to adapt your message to each person that doesn't, sell the philosophy short in any way. They're going to respect you better in the morning when they wake up if you don't sell out the philosophy because you're placating to them. And so that's kind of my point there. I don't think we should try and offend people with our terminology. We should take cues from them, and we should continue trying to influence them because it's working. So now I want to get to the crux of my show today. I was out on the beach, hanging out. The kids are playing in the sand, and we were watching the DJs, and I was sitting on and we were just hanging out on the beach, and it was really cool in my small town, a beautiful place. And I was looking out onto the lake, and I was noticing there's a couple houseboats out there. There's people floating around there. It's kind of like a steamship floating around, and there's people, on those boards that you stand and paddle, and I'm in my canoe too, and so we're having a great old time on the water, right? Everybody's using the commons called the water, and it's fine. No one's bumping into each other. There's no traffic cop. There's no light to protect you from getting bumped into or smashed by some wave. Everybody uses voluntary interaction on the water. It's a beautiful thing. There's no need for police out there, so there almost is none out there. And when they are, they do what police actually are all about, which is come harass you for no reason, find out if you have a license for catching a fish or whatever it is. I'm digressing on this point. It's anarchy on the water is what I'm trying to set up here. And you can float around your canoe, you could go swimming, no one's trying to keep you in your lane, and you don't need that either. So I'm floating around out there, hanging out on the beach a couple different times, and I'm noticing also there's sailboats and there's houseboats. A houseboat. What's a houseboat? Everybody knows what a houseboat is. It's just a raft or a dock or some kind of floating object with a house built on it. You can vacation in this house, or you could live in this house. Now, what are the rules? And do you have to have a mortgage? Do you have to pay taxes? Where's the road? None of these questions need answers according to houseboat people. Houseboat people just go build a houseboat on the water. They don't own their plot. They own their houseboat. I went out there, floated around, I talked to this guy, and he confirmed what I was speculating about, just sitting there thinking about it. Houseboats are a form of anarchist housing. You can go build one. You don't owe tax. No one comes to try and claim tax from you. No one tries to find out if your plot is a legitimate plot. No one is trying to sell you the plot in the first place, claiming they, own it before you start using it. So there is no claim, okay? So you can go out there and live in a houseboat. You could build a houseboat for 20 grand or 10 grand or whatever it is. You would have a house, and you could live in a beautiful place and have a beautiful lifestyle that is laid back, chilling, funking the state by owning a houseboat. Okay, it doesn't just end there. That's great news, and I'm sure that you guys have realized this before, but I'm saying realize it from an anarcho-libertarian perspective, that this could be a movement. It's like seasteading, but not utopian and futuristic. It's just true about today. People have already been doing it. You can do it. You could all go do it. 10 of you could go live in the bay somewhere. Maybe one of your friends owns a piece of property right there, and then you could just, moor your houseboat somewhere in their range. And since no one's going to complain because it would only be you, we could make networks. And houseboating could be a viable option for a lot of people in a lot of places. Maybe it's a fantasy. I want to know what you think about houseboating, if you have any stories about it. Maybe I know there's a lot of horror stories about what can happen to your houseboat. I've been talking to an engineer worker friend of mine who has some theories about that and ideas about how we could build a houseboat basically out of scrap and design it in a way that would be specifically appropriate to the nature of the area you're going to be houseboating in, so that you can survive the elements there. I talked to this one guy who was living on the houseboat, and he's a bachelor, and he said, yeah, the elements are a real thing. You're moving into a world where you're going to have to interact with the elements. I mean, maybe some people want that. Maybe that's really living. Maybe that's freedom, is figuring out how you're going to how you're going to make it and survive and benefit in your, Crusoe Island. So, think about this idea. And so right now we're just talking about this idea of a houseboat. What if you have a community of houseboaters? And I'm sure this is going on. Maybe you have a story. Maybe your uncle lives in a community of houseboaters. Someone, please tell me about it. Come to my Facebook page and let me know, because I'm trying to develop as much ideas about this as I possibly can. Once we have a community, a small community of anarchist houseboaters out there living next to each other, they're overlooking the other boats, making sure they're safe. They're drinking out of the water, so they don't want it polluted. So they could make the argument that they're helping to keep the lake or the bay or whatever not polluted because they have a vested interest. They could eventually we could push the theory of homesteading the plot, the specific area, and of course the water is moving past you, but so is the air and your property. It's not really a problem with owning a piece of land that's stable. There's nothing wrong. There should be nothing wrong with owning a piece of land that's got water moving underneath it. And so this is a way to homestead and privatize water, lakes, bays, etc. We could privatize them this way by laying claim to them in a way that isn't technically illegal and is philosophically voluntarist. And we could. I'm just inventing a term right now, the voluntarist. And I'm going to build houseboats all over North America and start a tourism company where you can come and fly to my village and hang out. Volun-Tourism. So, what I'm trying to get you to think about is houseboating as an idea to lay claim to specific plots of land on the lake that would then be privatized by people who have a vested interest for it not to be polluted. If we could find a way to spin this for the public, this could be a great and useful technique where we could achieve freedom in our time. What happens when more than 2 or 3 people do this? I mean, that's what Venice is. Venice is a great city built on the water. People homesteaded the water. And they probably did it for the same reason Zomians homesteaded the parts of the land they did, to escape tyranny and authoritarianism and essentially the state. Maybe it was a primitive state. If you look into the history of Venice, which is really just a bunch of houseboats, you will see that like 1,000 years ago, they were one of the first libertarian, anarcho-capitalist leaning civilizations in recent history. So all these things can tie together. This is going to be a short video. I found out, it turns out my battery is dying and I don't have the plug, so I don't want it to die in the middle of the video. I'm going to cut it short here. I'm going to produce some more videos and I'll link you guys to them. I'm going to change my day that Funk the State comes out because it's no longer a good day for me to do it Sunday night in the middle of the night. So I'm going to change it to a more conducive night for myself. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Think about houseboating. On Wednesday, the new Weird Al album comes out. It's called Mandatory Fun. Go check it out. I had one more point to make here. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, I like this video from Micah9 and Factor. You are free. Great libertarian message in this video. Don't forget, everybody, being a cop is not the most dangerous job. And being a soldier, whatever, thank a soldier, blah, blah, blah. I want you this week to thank a roofer for keeping the elements back, for giving you some freedom. Roofer has helped you with your freedom by preventing the elements from basically destroying you. And so you should thank a roofer. And beyond that, that's all I have to say this week. I hope to see you guys very soon. I hope to hear from you. I want people to message me on Facebook, Colin Sleuth. Talk to me about these ideas. Maybe it's a stupid idea. Tell me why. Maybe your houseboat flipped when you were a kid and you're never going to get over it. That's fine too. I think we're going to answer that question. I want to find a way to answer that question. Maybe you have an answer for that question. So get in touch with me on Facebook. Let's talk about these ideas. Houseboating. Go check out that quote from Ludwig von Mises about cheese. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Colin Sleuth reminding you to funk the state.